Okay. Hello, you guys. I like the way this filter looks today. It's like so much going on. But anyhow, I am at my office boutique and I'm going to try to make sure the lighting doesn't go in and out. Um, and I have to be to campus. I like two, but I think I should be able to get this done very quickly. So today I'm just going to talk about how I discovered God's true love. This has been on my heart for the past week or whatever, so I wasn't sure how often I would upload videos, but I will just do how I'm led. Again, this is like a nothing channel, and here I guess I just start putting more of like my personal things, personal stories, and life experiences on this channel. So, God's True Love, I'm going to quickly tell a story, a summary of a story. Um, I was probably like in my early 20s, and I was definitely going through depression and anxiety because of my living situation at the time. Um, I was a very young heir, and I inherited a home when my father passed away at the age of 14. So by the time I was 18, I was basically paying a mortgage note. And I will not go into all of the details of how that happened, but it was just a very difficult time. 13 years of a very difficult time. So I had a lot of darkness and a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety, bills, everything. Like, it was crazy. One day, a friend of mine who was coming over to visit me, we were just spending some time. And, when she was leaving, we were standing at my front door. And she said to me, "Oh, like my family name is Connie." That's a whole nother story. It's basically what my twin brother named me when we were toddlers. But she said, "Oh, Con," she said, "I love you." And, I looked at her very confused. And I could not bring myself to respond back, to say those words to her. It was like when she said it to me, it's like I looked at her and I was just like, what does that even mean? you know? So imagine like a time when I could not say the words "I love you" to people. It did not feel authentic. It did not feel, it felt very difficult to muster up inside of me those words. And you know what? That bothered me. It bothered me a great deal. So that week, I talked to God and I was just so irritated. I was like, why can't I say "I love you" to people? Why is it so hard for me to even accept when people say "I love you" to me? Um, so I decided that week I was going to be determined to find out what love was, what God's true love was. So I took to my Bible, I took to the internet, I took to like different resources as far as like articles, books, um, of course, scripture, like I just said. And not only that, like based on the scriptures that I was reading, I looked at the relationships around me. And at the time, my brother, who was not yet married, was in a relationship with a young lady, and all they did was like argue literally at each other's throats. And the whole time while I was researching and trying to figure out what love was, and that is erotic love, friendship love, brotherly love, which I'll get into in just a second. Um, I knew that that was not an example of true love. And I was gauging all of the relationships that I was around in my life, like my pastor and his wife, friendships, like just other people that I knew who were married or who were in relationships. And I will just say, at the end of it all, I ended up writing a 7-page essay. Like, no one told me to. It was just by my own might that I needed to write this essay. Like I said before in the other video, writing helps me to organize everything. Paragraph by paragraph, bam, bam, bam. So that by the end of it, I have a full understanding of what it is that I just learned. So I write this 7-page essay and I print out a few copies. I'm sure it's somewhere. It's probably like on my hard drive and because this was like a few computers ago. So I passed it out to like my immediate circle of friends, including my brother and his girlfriend at the time, some of my male friends and other friends, and they enjoyed reading it. Then I had this epiphany, right? It was like after all of that, it was like a light bulb. Duh, like, what is love? And God showed me in that moment that love is Corinthians 13. It was that simple, because then it was like God showed me how to look at that passage and how to grow in love and build love within myself. Because researching it and then writing a paper is one thing. It did not mean that I automatically knew what love was and that I could automatically start telling people, oh, I love you after 1 week. No, I had to begin to build and grow love within me. And this is how I was taught how to do it, and I'm going to share it with you. That's pretty much a summary of the story. And I hope that that is enough. I hope that if anyone relates to that, that's cool. But yeah, just know I was in a very dark time, deeply depressed. I kind of didn't know I was depressed because there are various kinds of depressions, but definitely dealing with a lot of anxiety. And it was just hard. It was really hard. Even during this time, I was pretty much a recluse, like kept to myself. I didn't go out much. I kept inside. And I did spend a lot of time with God. And it was just a very cave-like, like inside of the cave. Like a butterfly being inside of the cocoon before they can come out and be beautiful and take flight. So, let me break this down for you. If anyone wants to know what love is, it's very simple. 1 Corinthians 13. There are 13 verses within this chapter. So the first verse speaks of, if I speak in tongues of men or of angels, let me explain. Tongues of men, the languages that we speak. I'm just going off, it's like very, very simple. I mean, Bible scholars could come and be like, that's not what that means, but tongues of men are the languages we speak, or of angels. There is a phrase, speaking in tongues, where oftentimes these are spiritual and are supernatural languages that are not necessarily understood by the human ear, and oftentimes they have to be interpreted by an interpreter. The gift of tongues is a gift. I don't believe I have the gift of tongues. People can pray for it and try to reach for it, but like I explained in the other video, I have other gifts that I know I'm sure of, and I don't believe that I have the gift of tongues. So it says, if I speak in tongues of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Gong. It means nothing. You know, a gong and a cymbal, think in terms of like an orchestra or an orchestra band. It's like the gongs and the cymbals, they add to the whole orchestration of all the music. But you can't, I mean, if you want to, you can. You can compose a whole symphony with just a gong and a cymbal. How much can you do with that? It doesn't mean anything if you don't have love. You're just like an empty echo. Number 2, if I have the gift of prophecy, another spiritual gift, and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, again, gift of understanding, gift of revelatory knowledge, gift of interpretation. And it says, if I have a faith that can move mountains, you can be as faithful as you want to be, but do not have love, I am nothing. Number 3, if I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. So there are a lot of people who say, I donate to charity every year and write it off on my taxes. I gave $100 to this little boy on the street, or I did this, or I fed this person, or I worked in a kitchen and I worked on Skid Row, every 2 Saturdays out of the month. You can do all these things by works, but if there's no love, there's emptiness. It doesn't mean anything. You gain nothing. You can be a rich person or a wealthy person, or even a person who chooses poverty, who chooses hardship, and say, I choose to be low, I choose to be poor. But if you don't have love, you gain nothing. Here is where the real deal happens. The first 3 scriptures within the passage is just the setup, okay? Number 4, love is patient, love is kind. This is how God taught me to grow in love. And it's just this simple. Websites, blogs, people, Cosmo, fashion magazines, women's magazines are constantly, throughout time, asking, what is love? People say love is a feeling, love is a something. Look, love is patient. Corinthians 13 tells us, this is Corinthians 13:4. Love is patient. So first ask yourself, look in the mirror, because this passage is all about looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself. You can't be in denial and say, well, I'm not this, I'm not that. You can't believe what you think you are. You must first confront what it is that you actually are. Because I had to confront. I'm getting emotional. Okay. I had to confront the fact that the seed of love was not planted in me. And I was a nice person. I was kind of like naive, passive, gullible at that time. I've really grown a lot. The seed of love was not planted in me. So again, you could be a nice person. You could be a calm person. You can be a loyal person to people. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't have love. So you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I patient? Look at different situations in your life and find those points where you lose patience with people, with your husband or your wife or your children or your mom or your dad or your grandparents or your friends or your classmates or your coworkers. Where are you losing patience in your life? And the thing is, it's good to have a journal, because once you pinpoint it in your mind, you need to write it down. Okay? And the things that you write down, begin working on those things and say, you know what? I need more patience in this area of my life. And you will, this is how you're planting the seed of love. And or it could be planted, but it hasn't been watered yet. It hasn't been nurtured. You know, it hasn't sprouted yet. Next, love is kind. Look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you kind? There is a time and place for everything, just like it says in Ecclesiastes. There's a time for peace, there's a time for war. Ask yourself, are you kind? Because sometimes being kind can dissolve an altercation or a fight. You can't fight fire with fire. If you want to put out fire, you gotta use water. Or you have to suffocate, what is making the fire grow. What is that? Carbon? I don't know. You gotta suffocate the carbon dioxide, the CO2. So if you find areas in your life where you're not being kind, and especially where you need to be kind, because I know people who are in marriages that it's just like tension and strife just because it's just there. Like, really? Like, why are you being that way to your spouse? Why are you being that way to your child? And all they did was wake up. You know how people will be like, oh, I woke up in such a good mood, and then someone's attitude over here just totally like, oof, wrecked my joy. Are you wrecking someone else's joy because you're not being kind? This is about awareness, and it's about being aware of others as well as yourself. Don't just be selfish all the time. There's a time and place for that. Me time is so important. It really is. I believe in it. Love, it does not envy, it does not boast, and it is not proud. All of those things go hand in hand. And this is all verse 4. Are you envious? Are you boastful? Are you proud, haughty, egotistical? What coworker are you envious of, jealous of? What are you boasting about to make yourself look better or look better than someone? The opposite of boastful or being proud is like being humble, humility. Again, it's a matter of looking in the mirror, asking yourself these questions, not being in denial about the answers, and writing down that person or that situation that you're envious of. Maybe there's a couple that got a new house. Or I know moms who are jealous of their daughters. I mean, you can't help it that you gave birth to a beautiful girl. You know what I mean? She's like 13, 14, and she's just looking beautiful. You might wish you was her age again, but no. What are you boasting about? All of the money you have, the house you just got, the nice car you just got, that job you just got, that promotion you just got, that vacation you just took. A lot of what's happening on social media, because we can relate this to the time of now, posting all the pictures about your vacation in the clear blue sea in the Caribbean or that European vacation you took, and it's great to post some things, but it's important to be mindful that you're not doing it to just try to pretend or act like your life is better than someone else's. This is where people are getting social media depression and anxiety, because they want to be able to do what some of you are able to do. And for some people, it's an inspiration, gets them moving, gets them to saving money to be able to do that. But it shouldn't be about keeping up with the Joneses. That mentality of keeping up with the Joneses, it shouldn't be. So number 5, it does not dishonor others. I mean, that's simple. Dishonoring others. The Bible also says, give honor where it is due. Don't be afraid to give that person a high five when they deserve it. Don't be afraid to congratulate that person when they got a trophy or a promotion or a new something, a new house, whatever, when they deserve it. Be on their cheering team. It is nice. It is not self-seeking. 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 About self. That's pretty evident. It's not always just about you only, about the world revolving around you only. And it is not easily angered. How easy it is for you to get angry. Like at the drop of a penny, in 0.5 seconds. The anger that is within, because I've been angry too. I didn't even know I was angry. I have been angry too. And you know what? Someone saw it in my spirit and had to point it out to me. And I had to be freed from that anger. Yep, I've been angry too. And if you are, go speak to a therapist. Just be humble and go speak to a therapist. First, acknowledge that you are and begin to get help. And try to write down those things that you are angry about. Sometimes it's things that happened in childhood or something that happened on the job. Sometimes we get angry because one relationship after another does not work out. It keeps no record of wrongs. Who's keeping tabs? Because I know people got their list. They be like, such and such did this to me. Let me just write that down. Remember when. And this is also mental records too. Because oftentimes people forget, and I always say to myself, there are tons of people that have forgotten all the good I've done for them. And again, it's back to the person that only see what they do. You know, people helping me out with money at the times when I needed money. I did this for you and I did that for you. When people throw that in your face, well, I did this and I picked you up and I did that and I gave you $800 because you couldn't do your rent on this time and I did this and I did that. I. But it's so funny because they can't ever remember what you did for them. Keeping the mental records, keeping the written records of what people did. You know what? We're not perfect. Okay? If you've done things for people and they never do anything for you, don't do anything with an expectation of something in return. Because you have the choice to do it or not do it. And if you do have the choice, if you do something for someone, do something because you want to. Because you want to do it out of love. Even if they're the most terrible person in the world. Do it because you want to do it out of love. That way you don't have to keep a record. You know what I mean? You can already see the person for who they are. And you can have compassion for them and be like, well, you know what? I know this person is like, but you know what? I'm going to have compassion. They need help. They don't even know they need my help. You know, because later on, they might come around or they might come to mentally and realize 10, 20 years down the road that you were one of the best people they could have ever known. You just have to be patient and give people time. Number 6, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. That's very simple. What is evil? Darkness, bad things, evil. I mean, truth lies. Truth or lies. Love does not delight in lies. It rejoices in the truth. That's very simple. Drama, people lying, going back and forth, all kind of crazy situations, being a part of schemes and scams and, trying to, you just want to be on the winning team. That's pretty evident, okay? Love does not involve itself with drama and deceitful situations and plots and plans and different things like that. It just doesn't. So once again, look in the mirror. Ask yourself, what kind of person am I, and what am I involving myself in? Is it truth, or is it making someone's life miserable, making my life miserable? Is it drama? Is it love triangles? Is it messing up people's friendships? Number 7, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love does not give up, you guys. That's number 7. Love does not give up. I mean, that's evident. To protect, what? It's to hover over. Okay, to keep from harm. Are you protective of your children, of your wife, or even of your husband? Are you protective of that best friend? Are you protective of some of the people you really care about? Always trust. Wow. I cannot speak for people's relationships, but oh my goodness, what is the point of being with someone if you can't ever trust that person? If he, guy, girl, vice versa, it doesn't matter. If you're always jealous, if you're always in their phone trying to find out if they're talking to some girl or some guy, if they're having an affair, if they're cheating, if they're being faithful, like, who wants to live a life like that? If you trust, you could be at home playing video games, or you could be at home watching Netflix. It doesn't even matter if it's a guy, girl, and your boo, your bae, can go out to the sports bar, to the movies with their friends. Even if the friends are of the opposite sex, you need to be at peace. Because you know what? Everything is going to come to light anyway. I've been in a situation like that. I was planning a wedding with somebody that was not in love with me, only because they were my childhood boyfriend. Only because I met them when I was 13 and we got back together years later. But they was in love with their female best friend. And I detected it. I could see it. And when the Lord told me to leave, I was out of there. Okay? I've been in a situation. I've been in that situation. You must be at peace. Okay? Looking through people's phones and all that stuff. Always hopes. When hope dies, there's nothing to look forward to. You should always be hopeful. Hopeful for your future, for your career, for a dream, a vision, for a job that you want, a house that you want, the love that you want, the children that you want. Always hopes and always perseveres. Like I said, never gives up. It keeps going, keeps striving. Number 8, love never fails. Love never fails. I think that's evident. That's not anything like we could do. That just is. Love never fails. So, next here, and this is still in verse 8, it says, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Again, spiritual gifts, we have them, but they won't always be there. Where there are tongues, again, men and tongues of angels, they will be stilled. Okay? Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. Look, all of these things will come and go, you guys. They will come and go. And then number 9 says, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. So even if someone has the gift of prophecy, look, I'm not God. If I was God, I would know everything in full and in whole. But I don't. We prophesy in part. We know in part because we're not fully glorified. Number 10, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. Completeness. I have to look more into that. What I'm getting initially is the idea of being out of this earthly form in a glorified body, perhaps in a heavenly place or a supernatural realm, supernatural place. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When things are fully complete, the whole is there. Number 11, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. That's just a statement that the writer is saying. I have to go back. I think this is Paul. Corinthians, Romans. Yeah, I think this is Paul. Sorry, you guys. I've been dormant for a while, so I still have a lot of freshening up to do. So then in 12, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I know fully, even as I am fully known. And at the end, in verse 13, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And that's how the passage is ended. Faith, hope, love. You guys, that's all we need in life. That's all we need in life. That's like the foundation of this whole passage. Faith, hope, and love. And the greatest is love. So you should definitely have like a clear understanding of what love is. Love is Corinthians 13. It's just that simple. And I mean, I really don't know who will see this, but I would suggest that whether you read the Bible or not, to study this passage. And I don't know if I said this in my other video, but the Bible is the living word of God. It is definitely alive. The words are alive. Written by men, inspired by the Holy Spirit. The stories, oftentimes like with the Gospels, they were just documenting the time. I mean, that was the way of the time. And you have to go back. It's just like how we keep journals. But the documentation became so significant. So, secondly, to me, the Bible is a history book. The reason why I say that is because there are people who believe that it's not. Again, everything that you take in must be discerned. I remember watching a documentary, I think that's like from the early 90s or something like that. I was probably in junior high school, I'm giving myself away. um, about the discovery of Noah's Ark at Mount Ararat in Turkey. And I watched that documentary, and it's on YouTube actually. And I, like, once I became like an adult, I came back to that documentary and I watched it over and over and over again, because, and that's, again, that's what I do, because I needed to discern. And you can tell, like, you can watch any documentary on Netflix and you can tell if, like, if the argument, if how valid it is. You know what I mean? You can tell if it's truth or if it's one-sided, or if, like, the people who's making it is just trying to get their agenda across. Like, if it's biased, you can tell. And that's the same thing with reading a book or watching, I don't know, watching a movie. I felt very certain that this was the discovery of Noah's Ark. The measurements, everything matched up with what was written in Genesis. Even today, I believe it is Joseph. There's a statue in Egypt, and there's another documentary that I saw about this, actually, that my niece turned me on to, where that's supposed to be like the burial place of Joseph, and they were able to, like, gauge based on the type of the colors of the robe, because it was supposed to be like the robe that his father had made for him and that his brothers were jealous of. This very colorful coat. There has been a lot of evidence. Evidence of the flood from aerial views, which you can Google image those photos. Yeah. So thirdly, the Bible, for me, is a comparison chart, because we are literally reading about the first versions of ourselves as humans. We are reading about the first draft, really, of human nature and human character. And so a lot of times people avoid the Bible because the way that it's just, like, slapped across their face, it's like people don't want to have anything to do with, like, going to church or reading the Bible. Sometimes they just don't understand it. But I would say that it is a way to look at biblical characters and to see ourselves. It is a way to see where our heart is. Who do we relate to? Even in music, even in wisdom. Are you like Solomon? Are you like David, a songwriter? Are you like Ruth? You know, are you like Mary? You know. So, are you a Pharisee, Sadducee, religious leader? Someone who's so stuck that they don't understand the new commandments that Jesus brought when he walked this earth. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go. It's 2:07. I got to get to my car.